Hi, I'm Christina Hansen, the principal at Jones Elementary, and this video is intended for fourth grade parents who have a student who may be interested in applying for the fifth grade STEM class for the upcoming school year, so for the 2020-2021 school year. So first of all, what is STEM? STEM is an acronym that stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. So the STEM class entails a project-based approach, meaning that there's a lot of hands-on activities. There are in the other sections of fifth grade as well, but the primary focus of the STEM class is a project-based approach. There's also a focus on problem solving, group tasks, writing, and the communication of ideas. So students are frequently called upon in class to present in small groups or to the entire class, and at times throughout the year to parents and other members of other students' families. Even though the STEM class is STEM focused, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, all of the other subject areas are also covered. So social studies is a part of STEM. Writing and language arts, reading, all parts of STEM as well. And the STEM class is a self-contained class, meaning that students do not switch to different classes throughout the day, as the other fifth grade sections do. The students in the other fifth grade sections move from class to class throughout the day, whereas the STEM class is self-contained. There's, I think, a little bit of a misconception in that parents often think that the STEM students do not receive the itinerant classes, so technology, gym, art, music, life skills, but the STEM students do also participate in those classes. It's just that they don't switch to different teachers throughout the day for the content area classes. So what STEM is not? This is the fourth or fifth year that we've had the fifth grade STEM class, and I think that there are some misconceptions in the community or amongst students and parents about what STEM is versus what it is not. So there are some things that I would like to clear up. So first of all, STEM is not a gifted and talented program. There are all different academic abilities that are accepted into the STEM class. So if you're looking for a gifted and talented program, STEM is not that program. It's not an accelerated option, which means that once they're fifth graders here at Jones, they move to the junior high as sixth graders. They don't move on as seventh graders or something else. The STEM class is also not solely STEM, meaning that they don't only focus on projects, that there are other content areas that are a part of the STEM class. As I mentioned earlier, reading, writing, social studies, all of those content areas are covered in the STEM class as well. And the fifth grade STEM class is not an automatic option for students who were in fourth grade STEM for this current year, meaning that every student has to follow the same process in order to be considered for the fifth grade STEM class. Something that many parents are not familiar with is a standards-based report card. The STEM class uses a standards-based report card, meaning that there are no letter grades that are assigned to students. So there aren't A's, B's, and C's. So how do you know how your student is doing? Well, on a standards-based report card, what are listed are key concepts or key skills that students need to be able to do by the end of fifth grade. And students will receive these reports and they are either meeting the standard or progressing. So their work, their portfolio of collected evidence shows that they've met the standard, they know that backwards and forwards, or they're progressing toward it, meaning that they still have a little bit of work to do or they don't quite have the hang of it yet. And without grades, you might wonder, well, how do students know how they're doing? Feedback is given on assignments, projects, and classwork so that they know, oh, I need to work a little bit harder on this, or I've nailed this part really well. So that feedback is very important for students to have in order for them to know how they're doing as well. Just a little bit more about the standards-based report card. So I would say that the feedback that I've gotten from parents over the years who have students who participated in the STEM class, initially in the year, they said, I don't know about this standards-based report card business. I think that in the past, I've known what an A is, I know what a D means, and I liked that. And so there was a hard time at first about making that adjustment. But by the end of the year, what parents say about the standards-based report card instead is, I have a much better understanding of what my child can do and what they still need to be working on. I really like the standards-based report card better. So it might take some adjustment at first, but I think that you'll find that making that move to the standards-based report card will really help you understand exactly where your child is at with their skills and abilities with that fifth grade content or those fifth grade skills. A huge part of the STEM class are Project Lead the Way units. So Project Lead the Way is a curriculum that focuses on major aspects of STEM. So there are 2 units about robotics, and there are 2 units about infection. Another misconception that often comes up is that students think that STEM is all about robots. And while that's a part of what happens in the STEM class, it's not the only thing that students do. So students and parents alike need to understand that while robots are a part of STEM, it's not the only thing that happens. And then I always like when the students are doing the infection unit because they go around and they collect swabs of different areas in the school, and then they take those swabs and grow the samples in Petri dishes. And oftentimes students learn a great deal about infection and bacteria, and they become really skilled hand washers after that because things that they wouldn't think have a lot of bacteria really do, and things that they thought maybe were really gross weren't. So that's always one of my favorites when students are working on those units. So how is a student eligible for the STEM class? Well, first of all, we ask that students have an interest in the STEM class. If students don't particularly care for science or technology or engineering or mathematics, this might not be the place for them. So first we ask that there's a student interest. And then what we ask are that students complete and return an application. And this year, the applications need to be turned in by Friday, May 15th by 3 o'clock. I know as a parent, it's really hard to turn something over to your child, especially something as important as an application for a program, and let them do it on their own. But this is one of those times when it's really important for them to be able to do that. Well, I think it would be great to read parents' applications for STEM. Really what Mrs. Schulten and I are looking for are the students' perspective about the questions that are on the application. It's fine if you want to read over their application once they've done it and say, I think you should read this sentence again, it maybe doesn't make sense, or you better check the spelling about this word. But again, we don't want parents to dictate to students what should go on the application or to tell them what to write. We really want to hear that student voice and that student perspective come through in their applications. Some of my favorite responses over the years, I just know that a student wrote it because it's just the way that kids think about things. So again, please let your students complete the application on their own with no input from you other than maybe some help about cleaning up some language or spelling about things. Also part of the process is that the 4th grade teachers do some rating scales for students. And we're not asking about academic aptitude because that isn't really a part of this process. What we're asking about are some student characteristics. So can the student work in small groups? As I mentioned earlier in this presentation, a huge part of what happens in that STEM classroom is the ability to work with lots of different people in lots of different types of settings. So working in a group of 3, working in a group of 10, working with a partner and switching it up, students have to be able to have that ability to work in various small groups. If your child is one that you know has to have things their way, they're not able to work with others, STEM might not be a good fit for them. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the student or the way that they work. It's just that's how they work, and STEM wouldn't be a good fit for them. Again, when we look over these applications and when we consider the teacher rating scales, really what Mrs. Schulten and I are trying to do is try to find students that will be a good fit for the program and a good fit for that style of teaching. Also, if you have a student that is very motivated by grades, so they need to know, this is what I do to get an A, I'm always going to work to get an A, the STEM class is also not going to be a good fit for them. And that's a hard adjustment for students to make. I would not have been a good candidate for the STEM class when I was in elementary school because I needed to get that A. I wanted to know, okay, these are the 3 things that I have to do to make that happen. And I also didn't want to go back and redo things because clearly my way was the right way. So again, students need to be able to reconsider their work and be willing to try it in a different way or try it another time. And if your student doesn't have that ability or the want to work in that way, then STEM is not going to be a good fit for them either. Also, as part of the application process, in addition to the student application that they fill out and the 4th grade teacher rating scales, Mrs. Schulten and I also reserve the right to interview students. So if we're not sure if they wrote the responses on the application, or we want to ask some additional questions, just again to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for the STEM program, we do ask that students be made available to interview. And so Mrs. Schulten and I might just have some clarifying questions for them, and that would happen via Google Meet to be able to do that. Mrs. Schulten and I, so a little bit about how the process works. So what we do is we'll print out the applications and we'll assign each of the applications a number so that a student's name isn't associated with the application at all. So it's really a blind selection process. And Mrs. Schulten goes through all of the applications on her own, using her own method. I go through the applications using my own method, and then she and I will get together and say, okay, number 122, that was a yes for me. I really liked this aspect, or I really like what they said about this. If Mrs. Schulten has 122, then that student is an automatic in. We do have 26 spots available for the upcoming school year. However, I say 26, but know this, last year we had a definite number in mind, and we did end up accepting a few additional students or inviting a few additional students into the class just because the quality of the applications that we received were so great. So we say 26, but there's some leeway in that because it really depends on the quality of the work that we get from the students. So I'm hoping that Mrs. Schulten and I will be able to make the selections and know who will be invited and who did not make it through the application process, and that notification will happen tentatively the week of May 25th. In the past, I've met with groups of students that have made it or have been invited, and those that were not invited, and explain to them how things worked and then give them letters to take home. That process isn't possible this year, so I will just be making phone calls to invite students into the STEM class for the upcoming year. I guess something to say about for those students that didn't make it in, it doesn't mean that they're not going to be successful in the other classes. It doesn't mean that they're failures or things like that. Kids, this is probably one of the first time that students have had to apply for something. And so it is a little bit of a heartbreak for them. But one of the things that I tell them is that then you have the opportunity to be super successful in the other setting. And it doesn't mean that you're any less of a student. It just means that it wasn't a good fit for you at this time. There are some parent responsibilities associated with having a student in the STEM class. So first of all, we do ask that you participate in the family showcase nights. So participation might look like you need to bring your student to school one evening and come back for them at a certain time. It might also look like having your student be dressed up for a particular showcase, or there are other showcases too where families participate and you go around and you hear other students speak, so not just your own, but you have the opportunity to see work from other students as well. As a parent with a student in the STEM program, you might be asked to provide some materials, so a roll of duct tape, some cardboard, some recycled recyclable bottles from home, any different kind of material that Mrs. Schulte might ask for, we do ask that you, to the best of your abilities, provide that material for the class. And then you might have a job or a career or a hobby that really lends itself well to presenting to the class. And so we do ask that you also make your expertise available to the students. Maybe you participate in a Google Meet like this, or perhaps you share something with the class or send something in, or even participate in an activity that Mrs. Schulten has planned. And then we do also ask for your patience and a partnership, a sense of partnership in this program. The STEM class is different than a traditional classroom. And so when it's different, it doesn't mean that it's better or worse. It just means that it's different. And we do ask that if you have questions about things that you ask, and then just have a little patience, because it's an adjustment for your child and it's an adjustment to that type of learning setting. And so we do ask that you just reach out and ask questions if you have them. So that concludes our presentation. If I didn't cover a topic or something that you're wondering about throughout this presentation, I do ask that you reach out to me via email. My email address is khansen, HANSEN, at gladstone.k12.mi.us. And any question that you have, please just send off to me. And if I'm not able to answer your question, I can certainly follow up with Mrs. Schulten. So I hope that this has been helpful for you, helpful for your student. I am also recording a student video for them because there are different things that students wonder about than parents do. So again, make sure that your child gets their application turned in by Friday, May 15th by 3 o'clock. No late applications will be considered. So for no reason will we accept any late applications. So again, make sure that your student gets that done. And again, really take that step back as a parent and let your child answer the questions in the way that they're going to, so that we can get that student perspective and hear that student voice in their application. Thank you so much. And again, if you have questions, please reach out to me via email. Have a great day.